Hey everybody, it's me again, friendly neighborhood math teacher here looking at the 2018-2019 preparing for the ACT test practice booklet during the COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak. School's out, but I still have a lot of students that were planning to take ACT again. And today, even though I'm primarily supposed to be a math teacher, we're going to actually look at the English test. Magic hat time. So we're going to end up doing passage 8 because that's the one I decided I felt like doing. But first and foremost, we're going to skip back a few pages to the very beginning of the test. The English test. I've told you all that in every video, assuming you watched all the math videos, to never forget that the ACT is and will always be primarily a test of reading and perseverance. The ability to sit there for a long period of time and reading a lot. And so they get started right away with the English test, which is 45 minutes and 75 questions. That's their psychological warfare opening salvo, because they sell this to you, your parents, schools all over this country and throughout the world in some cases, as that no matter who the kid is, no matter where they take the test, as long as it is following their rules, that they will guarantee a score distribution that makes sense, so to speak, from year to year, kid to kid. They are making their money, even though they are a nonprofit organization, by the idea that, and the numbers vary slightly, but for purposes of this argument, that an average score is a 20, and that spreads out by about 4 points, maybe 5, maybe 3 point something. It just depends on the year. Let's say it's 4 just for purposes of this argument. So you go up 4, you go down 4. Yeah, I know I'm sneaking some math into an English video. So the numbers are something like 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. And then the idea is that 2/3 of takers, about 67%, score in that average range. And that if you go out another clump of scores in either direction, now you're at 95% of test takers. And again, my numbers might be slightly off, but that gives you the idea of the normal distribution or bell curve that is built into the ACT. So they are trying to press your scores into the middle. If you would be a little low, they're hoping that the guessing on the multiple choice nudges you up. If you would be a little high, they're hoping the stress of the timing pushes your score down a little, because they want to be able to look at like colleges, and colleges say, well, hey, if you make a 30, we guarantee you'll get a scholarship, because they know that that's only going to be like maybe 2% of the people that apply to their school in any given year, because most people are scoring in this range of like 12, 13 up to high 20s. All right. So with that being said, on the English test, don't really read this word for word. You're just trying to understand, and you're hoping that you understand the grammar well enough to answer each of the questions. Where did that passage go that I said I was going to read? Sorry about that. It's this one. So when I first glance at this, the first thing I do is just get an idea of what it's going to be about. I read the title. And again, these are the hints from a math teacher. Planet Earth's windiest observatory. Well, if you don't know what an observatory is, you might not know anything, but you do get the idea that we're on Earth, we're caring about the wind. Even if you just read the first few words, step outside into blowing snow. So they're setting a scene in your mind. And then you're just going to really, then at that point, skip to whatever the first question is. In this case, I'm on number 46. 46 is just one of these things. Which of these is right? So you got to read probably that sentence. Weather conditions at this facility, which sits atop its namesakes, okay, in the height of the peak. So they're talking about its name. What's the correct use for its name? Should it be the way it is? Should it be its with an apostrophe? Or is it plural and should be something like there or these? Well, if you go back a sentence, we're talking about the Mount Washington Observatory. We're talking about a singular observatory, so it's not one of the plurals. And it's with an apostrophe is it is. That's a hint I can give you even as a math teacher. So I don't want it is namesakes. I want it's as in possessive. So I'm leaving that one alone. I'm choosing F, no change. 47, in New Hampshire has earned. Okay, so I got to back up a little bit. I'm looking at this. There's the comma and then the verb is changing. All right, so this comma is ending this phrase that started right here. So I do have to back up a little bit and read a little bit in each direction to get this figured out. So this is a phrase set off in commas, and you would want this phrase to be enclosed in commas because you could read this sentence without that phrase and it still makes sense. Weather conditions at this facility, has earned, or have earned, or earned, earns. Oh, okay. So not only are we deciding whether or not we want the comma, which would be no change, but maybe we don't want it, or we need this to change. Well, if you read it without the phrase, weather conditions at this facility have earned makes the most sense because conditions is the noun and that's plural. And so I want to keep the comma and change to have earned. So for this problem, I'm liking B. And again, I mentioned it, but this is the 2018-2019 version if you're wanting to play along. You would have to fool around with the whole English test, but the answers are in the back. I'm just looking at one little bit. I don't teach this daily, but I can still try each question. All right, so 48 is this part here, so I'm going to read that like words on either side of it. Though somewhat diminutive compared to other mountains, comma, parentheses, Colorado's Pikes Peak, comma, for example, comma, is more than twice its height, close parentheses, comma. So they were looking at this phrase, and you go look at the choices, and it's about whether or not you want this comma here. And you see that there's this comma here, so they're hoping that makes you think that you want to keep it. But you don't need the commas and the parentheses around a phrase. Like we didn't need that up here on this other one. So we don't want parentheses and the commas. This comma is going to need to be deleted. This comma, if you read this without the parentheses, though somewhat diminutive compared to other mountains, comma, Mount Washington, blah, 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 blah. That does make sense. So it's really that this comma is the issue. This is a parenthetical phrase. So I do not want that comma. So that's either G or J. If I look at the difference, it's about whether or not there needs to be a comma after peak as well. Well, that comma is going to start the for example comma. So I do want that comma. So I'm going to go with G for 48. Mount Washington is the tallest peak in the presidential range. 49. Given that all the choices are accurate, which one best uses a comparison to emphasize that the weather on Mount Washington can be extreme? Leaving it alone. Well, we're not caring about the height. We're caring about the weather. And the one that is like the most extreme to me would be this weather that rivals Antarctica. So for 49, I'm going to choose D. Its steep slopes force. So that could be the its versus is possessive thing again. They could be hitting us with that twice. In which case this is still possessive. It's the slopes of the mountain. The peak stands at the confluence of three major storm tracks and its steep slopes force rising winds. So this comma here and then the and, this is a separate sentence that's been combined with it. So this needs a noun and a verb. And so we don't want to change this in such a way that force stops acting as a verb. So that would be that, and forcing are gone. And this just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to go with no change. Unlike the math test where you don't really ever want to use the things like cannot be determined, there is a decent number of the questions on the ACT English test where no change is appropriate. 51, speed parentheses of 231 miles per hour, close parentheses, colon, and then there's these choices. So let me read a little bit in front and behind. In fact, scientists in 1934 recorded a surface wind speed. Parenthetically, I don't think I like that in parentheses. Colon, one of the fastest. To me, you definitely want to get rid of the parentheses, so I don't like no change. The one of the fastest ever recorded is a phrase, not a sentence. So you don't want a semicolon, because if you put the semicolon, what's after it needs to be a sentence that stands alone. I'm not sure if they really want to use this dash. But I don't like that comma there. So I think I am going to go with 51 being B, and just hope that that's right. I don't like the comma around of 231 miles per hour, comma. That's not really a good phrase, because you actually do need to say this. You can't leave that out and it makes sense. Recorded a surface wind speed, one of the fastest ever recorded. You really need to say the number. Again, if something's completely enclosed in commas on either side, my general rule is that's information that's nice to have but not necessary to have. In one study, researchers used a laser beam. All right, so we're going to keep going here. We're going to skip a little bit. I don't need to actually read it word for word. I'm just trying to make sure I understand what's going on. They're talking about something they did there on that mountain. The observatory has also advanced scientists' understanding of clouds. Let me read the sentence before that. The observatory also keeps detailed weather records that scientists have used to track climate trends and weather patterns. So it's kind of this idea of, do we need to start that sentence more like in addition, additionally, also. So here's my idea, is if you did think that you wanted an introductory word there, how could you decide between those three of which one is most correct? So only because they're all being offered. Taylor, I am recording. Taylor, I am recording.
Okay.
Since they're offering three different words to put in front of it, that to me all feel about the same, and I can't pick one. They're all about the same. I'm just going to leave that as a no change. Advanced scientists' understanding of clouds, of ice physics, and Taylor, if you can't not do that while I'm recording, you're going to just be told not to play.
Okay.
So it's a matter of whether or not you need this word of, if I had to guess. Of clouds, understanding of clouds, This is a list all after the of. These are all things that the understanding of applies to. So I think we just want ice physics, comma. So 53, I'm going to put D. Okay, fourth paragraph. In case they need to ask a question about a paragraph as a whole, they'll number the paragraphs. All right, so I'm going to read the first sentence. To conduct all this research, staff are on site year-round. Observers, comma, who work, I'm going to keep reading, several 12-hour shifts over the course of the week. That is not a complete sentence, 54. So to make that a complete sentence, we need to turn this who work into just something about working or work so that it's an actual sentence. The one that would make it an actual sentence is H. So 54 is going to be H. 55, to change personnel in winter, though, crews ascend the mountain in a vehicle. So let's see. 55, though, should the though be changed to of course, changed to however, left as though, or removed. To change personnel in winter, read it without a word at all. Crews ascend the mountain. I don't think we need a word there. So I think I'm going to go with 55. I'm going to choose D and just strike that word basically. Crews ascend the mountain in a vehicle, comma, gripping the snow using revolving tracks similar to those on a military tank. While gripping, that means the crews would be gripping. I don't like that. Vehicle that grips the snow using revolving tracks similar to those on a military tank. I'm okay with that. In a vehicle and grip, again, that's back to the crews doing the gripping. I don't like that. I don't like it the way it is. I think we need to be more clear that it's the vehicle that's doing the gripping, and the choice that does that is H. 57, we get to skip a bit to here, so I'm going to read just the first sentence to give myself an idea of what's going on. Though isolated, the Mount Washington Observatory offers weather enthusiasts many ways to get involved. So this will be something about how, even if you're not there, you can be involved. The observatory takes volunteers and accepts interns to assist with research, period. So 57. Oh, I'm going to keep reading just a little bit more. The bold can take part in educational trips to the summit in winter. And they're trying to decide, do you leave that as it is? Do you change it to research and the bold with no comma? Research but the bold, no comma. Research, comma. So really got to decide here, it looks like if these are complete sentences on their own. Observatory takes, bold can take. Those are both sentences on their own. This part about the bold can take part in educational trips to the summit in winter, I don't think you need but the, because it's not like the first part of this is something that makes sense to say, and then but the, and then you say something else. So I actually think on 57, I'm going to leave that at no change. Skipping a bit, 58. For those who are planning to make a trip to Mount Washington, comma, the observatory has a website with live video feeds of the summit. Well, why would you care about the live video if you're going there? So 58 looks like it's going to be about something. Which choice about changing it completely? Which choice contrasts is most different, most directly with the other ways to get involved with the observatory that are mentioned in the paragraph? So, you know, going there, going to the top versus live video feeds. the most contrast would be in your warm recliner. So I'm going to choose G for that one. (59) and 60 ask about the preceding passage as a whole. The writer is considering adding the following sentence to the essay. This information is used to help create regional weather forecasts. If the writer were to add this sentence, it would most logically be placed at point A in paragraph 1, B in 2, C in 4, D in 5. So I'm going to go look about for the A, B, C, D in the passage and see which spot would make most sense for a sentence about using information to make regional weather forecasts. So in the introductory paragraph, A is here. So it would be welcome to a typical January day at the Mount Washington Observatory. This information. No, there's no information in the preceding sentence. B, well, that would be right at the start of a paragraph. So again, that doesn't make sense for this information. This information implies we were just talking about it. Choice C, the sentence before that, observers go outside every hour to gather data which they send to the National Weather Service. This information is used to help create regional weather forecasts. So 59 is going to be choice C. 60, suppose the writer's main purpose had been to describe how mountain ranges affect weather patterns. Would this essay accomplish that purpose? I'm inclined to say no, because it's about one specific mountain. Not mountains in general and weather patterns in general. It's about a mountain, it's about weather, but it's about the specifics. So I'm going to go with one of the two that's no. No, because it outlines the history of Mount Washington. No, I didn't read it word for word, but it did not feel like it was mostly about the history. No, because it provides an overview of the Mount Washington Observatory and its research. Now, the parts that I did read did match that. So there, I know that talking through it takes a little longer than reading it, but I did answer almost 15 questions there. So that was a decent chunk of the test. Magic mirror time off. So I hate my hair in this thing, which means I actually hate my hair all the time and don't know it. So there you go. That's a math teacher. Math teacher takes one little part of the English test. I'm sure if you get this PDF and check my work, or even just going through them, there might have been a couple you disagreed with and you might have been right. But I still feel like I did all right considering. Thanks for now. I'm going to do a similar video for reading and science, where I look at one passage and each of the questions with it and just kind of give you like an overview of how I personally would work those tests. And again, major advice still applies. You read it and you're not sure, you guess, and you move on. Thanks for your time.